Is Instagram about to go the way of MySpace?
And what's next for the NBN? Vertical Hold is proudly brought to you by Aussie Broadband, changing the game with their award-winning network and Australian-based support. Hey there, welcome back to Vertical Hold Behind the Tech News, the tech podcast where we catch up with Australia's leading technology journalists to dive into the big tech stories of the week. I'm Adam Turner, and I'm joined as always by Alex Kidman. Now, hey Alex, scientists have found a new way to make robots from dead spiders. Nothing could go wrong there, could it?
No, look, I'm sure it'll all be fine. And look, on the one hand, I think this is sort of amazing because they're using spider legs to make like little grippers. And it's great in one sense because, hey, biodegradable and you're getting use out of it because of the weird hydraulic way that spider legs work. On the other hand, robot zombie spiders. Oh, hell no.
So speaking of oh hell no, we're joined again in the virtual Vertical Hold studios by Jennifer Dudley Nicholson from News Corp, and I've just seen the look on her face as we were discussing robot zombie spiders. Jen, how many can we put you down for?
Look, the only good thing about this plan is that the spiders have to die first in order to become zombies. That's the only part I like about it. Apart from that, no, all in the bin. No.
But then they're undead. That's even worse.
Yeah, and Jen, you've got to breed the spiders first so you can have the dead spiders. So you're making even more spiders.
Yeah, no, that's worse. That's much, much worse. There was one time that I actually got something delivered to me, a speaker, and my old friend Rodney Chester opened it on my behalf, and spiders ran everywhere. And apart from that, this is the most horrifying spider tale I've heard.
Wish you had a photo of that. That'd be something that I'd want to see.
I think we're about to lose our audience here because they're just going to run in terror.
All the arachnophobes have dropped out at this point. So, Jen, this week we're taking a look at Instagram. We know you're the queen of Instagram, so you're the perfect person to talk about this. And we're diving into how the photocentric social app has royally pissed off a huge section of its fan base. But before that, once again, it's time to dive into our soup du jour, the NBN. You'd think by now it would be a main course, but no, it's still the entree. We're still getting into the meat of it. And right now, we've got something called a special access undertaking that's just been ripped up and thrown in the air like confetti. To chat to us about that, we're joined by veteran telco journalist David Browie. So for technology journalists, the NBN is the gift that keeps on giving. This thing has been dragging on for so long. And so joining us to talk about it is a man who was there in the beginning, veteran telco journalist David Browie. David, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. Great to be here.
So there's a lot been going on with the NBN this week, but it gets a little technical. We're arguing about something called an SAU, a special access undertaking. What does that mean and why is it so important here?
So the SAU is something which is basically administered by the ACCC, the Competition Authority, and it's designed to make sure that there are rules about what can be charged for NBN services and what can't be. The theory when it was introduced was that it would allow some certainty in the market about what companies could charge for NBN services. Now, this was the current one was introduced in 2013, so it's aged just a little bit. We've had about 15 prime ministers since then, and certainly with the new government coming into play, there's a lot of momentum, I think, behind discussions to change this. The SAU is necessarily something that reflects the conditions at the time, and of course, when this was introduced in 2013, we had just had a change of government from the Labor government that introduced the NBN. Of course, we had the new coalition government come in and try to shake things up pretty dramatically. So the one that's in place currently is still the one that was introduced then with a few tweaks over the past few years. So the rules are pretty fundamental to the way the NBN works, and particularly about the pricing models that are available to retail service providers to charge people.
So that's the thing. It's not about the price that your Telstras and your Optuses of the world can charge us as end consumers. It's about the price that the NBN can charge the telcos for a wholesale service. And so that the telcos have been very unhappy with that, haven't they?
Yeah, they have been. I mean, the relationship between NBN and the telcos that are trying to sell the services has always been a bit fraught. That certainly hasn't been helped by the constant changes in technologies and services and speed bundles and all. There's been a lot of different agendas at play over the years, and the net result of it has been that NBN has been trying to find ways to make heaps of money and still try to sustain a market which is also trying to make money while meeting objectives of keeping the price of the whole thing low enough that people will actually bother to pay for it. And those things have not always been compatible over the years. One of the biggest issues has been trying to provide enough money to help the NBN pay back its debt, the debt that was undertaken to build the thing in the first place. And it's difficult because as a government supported service, there are expectations about equity of access and all this. But that's very difficult when you're also trying to make enough of a profit to pay off your debts. So there's been a constant tension with the industry. And the industry has been pushing for more, I guess, flexibility in the way that the pricing is administered. Certainly, there's been a lot of prescription going on from NBN's side about what sorts of services it's going to offer, where it's going to offer them as well has been an interesting dynamic because of the insistence on having that multi-technology mix network, which pretty much means that someone in one suburb will get very different service than someone in the next suburb based on what's in the ground for them. So there's been a lot of dynamics in play, and the industry has really got pretty jack of NBN overall. I think refusing to make things a bit more conducive for them to offer competitively priced services and faster services as well, based on what their customers want.
David, you mentioned the big sea change that we saw in 2013 when the coalition government came in and we went all multi-technology mix. It appears in this past week, though, that we've had another one of those big sea changes because the SAU that NBN Co was going to put forward, they've basically torn up on the advice of the government. And it seems to, again, you mentioned the word flexibility. It seems to kind of revolve around this idea of being more flexible with things like privatization and costs recovery. Is this as big for the NBN and the future of the NBN as I think it is?
It's definitely a big step. I mean, the discussion about how to change the SAU has been going on for a fair while, and anybody who's interested can look online and see what the various telcos had to say about it. But generally, the response has been nah. They weren't very happy about it at all, and I think that everybody kind of knew that. NBN's between a rock and a hard place on this because they're trying to meet a lot of competing objectives here. But as you said, we've definitely had a new government in place, and one of the cornerstones of the policy around the NBN has been that Labor is going to try to expand the footprint of the NBN, get more fibre out there, really try to finish it in the way that it initially talked about starting it. And we're in a very different market now, obviously, all these years later, and so there are different dynamics, and everything's getting more expensive, and of course, there's a lot going on at the moment. But I think fundamentally, it was pretty significant to have Michelle Rowland come out in the letter, which is also available online. It's an interesting read. She basically says that the current proposal to amend the SAU, which has been put forward as a proposal, is not fit for purpose. She really wasn't impressed at all with what NBN Co has proposed, and she's just dropped the hammer on the whole thing. She used the word reset, which I thought was interesting. It's really time to just sort of put an end to what's been going on for the past decade under the coalition, and really figure out the way to turn this network into something that's going to work for the long term. For the benefit of everybody. So it is really an opportunity to do amazing things with it, whether they're amazing or just a little bit better. I think this probably a point of discussion, but it does seem to be, I think, something that everybody has been pretty happy about. They weren't happy about the proposed reform, which was basically going to allow NBN Co to increase the price of its services at a pretty steady clip. I think that I had read that they were proposing basically price increases at inflation plus 3% on some of its products,
and inflation could be pretty high. So another 3% on top of that, it could be getting quite nasty. So exactly right in that basically when you say NBN was between a rock and a hard place. So am I right in thinking basically the problem was that under the coalition government, they had to stick with this idea of you have to make a profit, you have to pay for yourself, you have to be attractive enough that maybe one day we could sell you off. Therefore, you need to keep jacking up the prices so the books look good. But now the new government saying, well, we're not talking about selling you off in the near term. We're not talking about so much making you pay it back. So let's come up with prices that don't have to worry about that and just have to worry about making it more affordable for ISPs and therefore for end customers.
Definitely, definitely. That's one of the dynamics that's been very important. I think one of the interesting points as well about the climate now, I mentioned that the circumstances are different now, is 5G, which has emerged as something that a lot of people are getting access to. It's really good if you've ever used 5G. It's pretty fast, and I think for a lot of people would be more than enough for their general broadband needs. So NBN Co. has now found itself with a new competitor, which doesn't rely on wires, doesn't rely on infrastructure underground, the cable networks or the copper, the Telstra copper, as the NBN has had to do. So
David, I'm going to
yeah.
interrupt you here because I've got a point of contention with. I know the argument you're talking about,
Yeah.
and I don't 100% agree with it. And it's interesting, really, because the telcos for the longest time kind of were very much playing the line of 5G is a complementary technology because it's
Yes.
wireless, because there's only so much spectrum to go around. I think this argument that 5G is absolutely, in every case, an NBN replacement ignores the fact that a lot of 5G relies on NBN for the backhaul and also ignores the practical application that 5G right now, you're not wrong, 5G can be blazingly fast. And for some people and in some situations, especially fiber to the node and anyone on a wireless satellite or fixed wireless NBN tech could be significantly faster.
Mm.
But it's like we've all been around in the telco space for long enough to remember when 3G came in and when 4G came in. When you first had that 3G or 4G phone, it was lightning fast because there were like 3 people on the network. We're not quite at that. 5G has been around for a while. But the more people you get onto this, the more things like that peak evening slowdown is just going to start crumbling 5G. And that's just physics versus, fixed line and especially fixed fiber. It's kind of hard to argue with the speed of light, I find.
It's definitely not a replacement. I mean, it's not something that's going to kill the NBN. I don't think that's right, and you're 100% right in that. But what you are seeing, and there are a lot of people for whom their phone is their life, and so they're happy just to use their phone as to access services on the phone or the tablet. They'll use it as a hotspot. So that's a certain base of user, and I think that that probably the people that are happy to do that are also, in many cases, the type of people that are going to want to get a basic service at home because they use their phone a lot. And a lot of the discussion about the pricing has revolved around the lower speed plans. NBN Co has been trying. Initially when the coalition came in, remember they were saying, "Oh, who needs more than 12 megabits or 25 megabits
I think
of
it was
speed?"
25,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, 25. Who needs faster than that? I was like, what are we ever going to do that would require that? Enter the cloud and the entire world as we know it now. So 25 is entry level now. But the initial and the SAU was built to reflect that. I think the pricing was designed to keep the low end pricing high enough because there was some assumption. Someone decided, I'm not sure why, but decided that there was just going to be a rush of people to buy these 12 megabit plans, and maybe they would increase to 25 one day. And what has actually happened, of course, is that anywhere that people can get faster speeds, they're ordering them. I don't know what we're up to now, but I know the 50 megabit was very popular, and I think pushing towards 100. People want speed, and they need speed now with streaming and all this. And a lot of this stuff didn't exist in 2013 either, so you can understand why they felt that. But that's been part of the disparity is that the NBN tried to set the entry price plans high enough to make its profit. And then that didn't leave them very far to move for the really expensive plans because they needed to also keep them low, the expensive plans and the fast plans low enough that people would still pay for them. Because in the market, who was going to pay $150, $200 a month for a fast plan? There would be only a certain number of people. So that's part of the balance, I think, between the low end users that they want to get them on the network, but also recognize they have alternatives, and the high end users who will pay anything to get the speed that they need. Yeah, definitely.
So those high prices for the lower plans were really a gift to the 5G rollouts, weren't they? If you were making your money out of 5G at the moment, you wouldn't be happy that NBN prices were probably going to drop.
No, that would be a challenge, definitely. I mean, because we've got the mobile providers coming in, and I think both Optus and Telstra now sell 5G hotspots. You just plug it in your phone, in your house, and then you can hang a wireless mesh network and put it around your house, and you've got broadband which is completely disconnected from the NBN. And it's not like everyone's going to do that, certainly, but a lot of the higher value customers that the NBN is wanting to get, and a lot of the retailers want to get, may be considering something like that. They may be trying to consolidate their services onto the one wireless. They may see value in having the fiber. I think and part of the key the key messaging that we're seeing from the industry through this whole process has been that they want the flexibility to be able to provide what the customers need, and not only to be able to provide what NBN tells them the customers need.
One of the really interesting things with this as well, and to be fair to NBN Co, a special access undertaking takes time to put together, but the government is not giving them a great deal of time. The letter actually states, I think it's the 1st of July next year, 2023, they actually want the new SAU in place and operating, even though the existing one expires this December. So they've got a year. We will see these changes, whatever they are, quite quickly in NBN time, won't we?
We definitely will. NBN's got to go back to the drawing board and come back with something that's more acceptable. And I think Minister Rowland has made that very clear that they've got to do better. Which is it was interesting to see her come and say that. I think it's not surprising, given the scope of the conversation that Labor's been having around the NBN and the things that they want to do. It is, I guess, going to require some pretty fast action. I guess one of the benefits is that the companies that have issues and that have really strong perspectives about this have already put in submissions, and they're widely available. So it's not like it's a major surprise what they want. And so a lot of it will hinge now on what NBN Co comes back with that's better. So it's not like they have to just go back and say, oh, what does everyone think? We know what everyone thinks. It's just, what are you going to give us? And is that satisfactory for the government moving forward? So yeah, it's definitely a tight deadline, but we really need to update the SAU, and I think everyone agrees it's time to go. So there won't be resistance, or I think a lot of discussion about what needs to happen. It's just when will NBN come up with something that everyone's happy with.
So is this likely to impact the actual infrastructure, the rollout, the fibre mix? Because both the Coalition and Labor went to the election saying they were going to put more fibre in the ground, but Labor said they were going to put more in than the Coalition. Labor's in now, so we're getting more fibre. Does this change any of that? Should we expect even more fibre again now, or is what they were talking about before still the same?
I think we should expect more fibre either way. I mean, Labor's made it pretty clear that they want to put more in. They're going to try and upgrade a lot of the services, really get more towards what they were talking about 13 years ago when they initially envisioned the network as being all fibre. It's been pretty clear, I think, for a while that was probably always the best approach, although there are a lot of nuances to that, definitely. But ultimately, as a goal, I think to support the needs of people, we're going to definitely see a lot more fibre in the market. One of the things that's probably worth mentioning in the context of that is that NBN recently has moved to kind of shift the boundaries of its satellite and its fixed wireless networks by shifting a lot of people off satellite and expanding the footprint of the fixed wireless networks, which is predominantly used in regional areas. And the reason for that is because there's been such a shift in the way people use their broadband that the satellite services cannot cope with the volume that's been put on them. And so they're trying to use the fixed wireless networks in new areas to try and offload a lot of that from the satellite. So there's been a lot of rebalancing going on between the different architectures and the different NBN infrastructure. And so I think that fiber is going to play a bigger role in doing similar things in areas that haven't been serviced by fiber, maybe where there is still a bit of fiber to the node. Which just needs to be cut out of the network now, and they're going to put fiber in place. So we definitely, I think, will expect to see more fiber either way. As the SAU is finalized, one of the real issues will really just be at what price? What are the plans? How are they going to structure that so that NBN can support itself and provide something that the market actually wants?
One of these suggestions that's just endlessly done the rounds, they've basically said they're not going to privatize the NBN in the foreseeable futures, I think the language that they used, but is this idea of relieving that financial pressure on NBN Co by actually just writing that debt off. Do you think that's more likely now?
We'll have to see what they do. I think there's particularly in difficult economic times, the government's going to be pretty careful about just doing a massive write-off of any sort. I think they're going to try first to do what they can with NBN, with the network, and try and make it work the way that it's supposed to. I think really the focus, and she actually says this as well, is that she has a sense that people are not as concerned about the financial structure of the network as much as getting a quality network in place. And I think that we'll probably see the government focusing on that first, just getting it fixed properly and getting a pricing structure that's there. In terms of privatizing it later, we'll see what happens. I don't know if they're going to pick that up and run with it. It really just depends on, I think, how the economic situation changes and how successful they are in driving the kind of change through this that really allows it to meet the expectations that they have.
Well, it looks as though the NBN is going to remain our soup du jour for the foreseeable future. Thanks for joining us today, David.
Thanks for having me.
Now, it's been a while since you've been on the show, so this, I think, will be the first time that you face the patented vertical hold 3 questions of doom.
Oh, no.
Insert drum roll here. I will ask you 3 questions. You can answer them in any order you like. Where can people find your work online? Where can they find you on social media? And our current big contentious question, what's the worst thing you've ever spent your own money on?
Oh, goodness. If I say NBN services, that would probably not be
What a giveaway.
People can find me on social media. I tend to just frequent Twitter. I, if you can believe it, I actually do not have a Facebook account. After all these years, I've still managed to, I don't know if I'm off the radar or if that just makes me a target for Facebook, but I'm not there. So you can definitely find me on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn, but only sporadically. So if you want to reach me, find me on Twitter. If you want to find out more about my work, I've got a website, which is browie.com, surprisingly enough. And I also have a portfolio on Authory, AUTHORY.com/David Browie, that's constantly updating. So if you want to see what's going on in the industry and what I've been doing, then definitely welcome to go there. The worst thing I've spent money on, gosh, there have been so many. We've been working in tech for so long. I've got a few drawers full of old stuff that never worked probably as well as it should have. But I think the beauty of it is it's only money, and once it's gone, you can always buy more stuff, right? You can always hope.
As Douglas Adams put it, it's little green pieces of paper that don't care about where they're moved to. Quite smart. Thanks so much, David.
Thank you.
So, Jen, social networks come and social networks go. We've certainly seen more failures than successes. Up until fairly recently, though, Instagram really was one of the big successes. It seemed to be attracting that younger audience that its parent company, Facebook, would desperately love to have but doesn't have, except not now. In the past couple of weeks and in the past month, they've made some big changes which have led to some very, very disaffected users. How much can you actually change about a photo sharing social media network, Jen?
Well, you could potentially make it not really a photo sharing social network. So the problem, the heart of the problem that really exists with Instagram at the moment is that Meta, Facebook, really want it to also be TikTok. And so in its absolute vigor to make this thing take on TikTok, it wants to pivot, we love that word, pivot to video. And so, yes, we have a perfectly good photo sharing app. Let's make it all about video. And as a result, they've changed their algorithm so that reels, as they call them, or videos on Instagram are massively promoted over the top of photos. It really annoyed all of the photographers just doing that. And then in addition to that, because they really want to grow their audience and overtake TikTok, they've also made some other changes as well around suggested posts, which sound like a good idea until you find out that basically around 1 in 6 of the photos that actually appear on your Instagram feed are from someone that you don't follow that the algorithm thinks maybe you should. It's the most annoying thing in the world.
It really is a big change. And I mean, I noticed it coming through my own Instagram feed, and I'm only on Instagram intermittently. I guess I'm not the core audience, but it immediately kind of occurred to me, hang on, because usually you just you rapid scroll through Instagram. It's one of the good things about it. I can kind of see what my friends and people I follow are up to. And suddenly it was, no, I've never heard of this person. What? And I've got to be honest, at first I thought, has my account actually been hacked and started following all these weird accounts? So I realized, no, wait, these are suggested people that it really desperately wants me to follow. And it's annoying. Is annoying your customers a good call?
Yeah, not from my perspective, being a customer. And the problem is too, like, so in amongst all of this, you've got suggested posts which are crowding up your feed, and 1 in 6 is a hugely high number. That's going to increase. So strap yourselves in for that one. They're talking about it's going to be 1 in 3 posts are going to be suggested by the end of 2023. So rival app makers, you have until then to get your act together. And I'm looking directly at you, Flickr. Please do something to rescue us. So in addition to that, you've got ads as well, and many of the ads are reels or videos, and then you've got reels that are added into the photo feed. In addition to that, it's all one unholy mess. And then some people have signed up to a beta to make things different again, which according to Adam Masseri, who runs the site, is saying it's not yet good. Why are people accessing it if it's not yet good? This whole thing seems like a giant experiment gone wrong at this point from what was one of Meta's most successful apps.
What you're talking about doesn't just sound like they're trying to copy TikTok. It sounds like they're trying to copy Facebook because I'm not really cool enough to be an Instagram user. Let's be honest, I'm barely cool enough to be a Twitter user. But there are Instagram users in my household, and I follow it. But from what you're describing, sounds like more like my Facebook feed, because I know that at least 1 in 3 things that pops up in my Facebook feed is either an ad or a recommended page for something I might be interested in. I see far more of that than I actually see of the people I know that I want to follow, which it becomes quite frustrating after a while. You're thinking, why am I not seeing enough of the things I want to see? So they're taking that mentality and applying it to Instagram, basically.
Yeah, there is a bit of a crossover, and I think they mentioned this week in an earnings call that yes, this was the suggested posts idea is coming through to Facebook as well, and it's all about trying to make things stickier, trying to make things more engaging. Yes, you follow a certain number of people, but they want you to follow more, and they want you to be more engaged, and they want you to find new people to follow. And that's the idea behind it all. But they're doing so in such an aggressive manner that they're really cheesing off a lot of people who are quite dedicated to the site. I don't know if you can say the same about Facebook, but certainly they want to increase engagement there. And that's why they'd be doing something like this. Um, it feels to me a little bit like when you sign up to a newsletter or you sign up to, receive updates from a company, but then you receive 2 every single day because that's definitely going to win you over
Mm.
and ultimately just drives you away from them instead. I think that they really have to get a grip. And also, it's worthwhile mentioning the Kardashian Jenner household is on this. And so they're in actually quite, I mean, it's easy to mock, but they're in quite a lot of danger of really alienating a lot of people with this because Kylie Jenner, whether you subscribe to her lip balm service or not, you guys might not necessarily do that. She actually cost Snapchat like $1 billion one time when she tweeted about some of their features not working properly. Both of the Kylie Jenner, I can't call them both Kardashians, and Kim Kardashian have tweeted that Instagram needs to work like Instagram again this week. And you'd hope that that would see some changes, but so far Facebook have said, "Yeah, we hear you," and suck it.
Mm.
It is that thing, though, that social media services, especially newer social media services, need to appeal to a younger and younger crowd going forward. Facebook is just terminally uncool. Facebook is for old people like myself, in a way.
I was going to say, I feel seen at this point.
Yeah. But Facebook had its moment where it was, relatively young and hip, and with it, it's no longer there. And, MySpace is the example of this, where there was a time where, there was an awful lot of social pressure, because that's really what drives these networks, to be on MySpace, whereas now it is literally a joke. I can bring up MySpace and people laugh and go, oh, that's right. I mean,
Punchline.
you mentioned Flickr, Jen. I get this feeling that the only thing that might revive Flickr would, in fact, be those robot spiders we talked about in the intro,
Please
running the
no.
code for us.
I actually quite like Flickr, but like it had so many different changes of ownership, and then they tried to make it into a paid model. I think if they clean it up, if they do their app properly, if they create some groups, maybe add some stories that that Facebook stole from Snapchat and stick them on the head, I reckon that they've got a good shot. Because if these suggested posts keep continuing, and you can turn them off for 30 days at a time, but only 30 days, and then you got to do it all over again. If that keeps continuing, I reckon Flickr's in with a chance. I'll sign up again.
So going back to TikTok versus Instagram, Do you think that TikTok is going to win out of this, or do they need to be worried? Because even if Meta's getting it wrong, they've got a shed load of money behind their efforts.
They do. I don't necessarily see them as direct competitors, even though that's the way that Meta sees it, obviously. And certainly, I mean, they're competing for eyeballs, absolutely. But I think that TikTok has had explosive growth and will continue to have it. The biggest thing to hold back TikTok is TikTok itself, I think, because they've been embroiled in scandal after scandal in terms of where your data goes, who sees it, who can access it. They're kind of hampered by the very fact that they're owned by a Chinese company, essentially. That we didn't see their sale go through. I'm sure Facebook would love to buy them at this point, and honestly, I would love it if that happened too, because then maybe they could just focus on TikTok being TikTok and Instagram being Instagram.
Well,
But
you'd end up with
ultimately,
TikTokstagram, Jen. You know
I do
you
not
would.
want. We've got TikTokstagram now, where they're trying to force reels upon us. That's the
It's-
problem. I think that there's potentially room for both, and certainly like both of them have amazing user bases. Like in terms of figures, we're both talking about over 1 billion users of both apps. I think that TikTok's got a while to grow yet. First, it got the kids in, then it got the people who were in the pandemic in. Then there's a whole heap of oldies on there just posting about their mother-in-laws, and that's fine. There's a place for all of them there. So I think that ultimately TikTok is going to keep getting in the people.
I mean, we've been talking about, and this is true of TikTok, this is true of Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and even LinkedIn and any social network you care to name. We've been talking about as being the customers, but actually we're wrong there. We're not the customers, we're the product. Because the thing that actually
Because we're not
drives all of
paying.
this, yeah, exactly, is the ads. And it's actually selling the ads and selling the data and selling the stuff that generates money. Instagram's basically doubled down on this, haven't they? They've basically said, look, this is how it's going to be. Get used to it, losers.
Yeah, largely that was the general vibe. So yeah, as I mean, Adam
I may have been
Mosseri came
paraphrasing
out.
a little.
A little bit, but like you're getting the general vibe. So Adam Mosseri came out and he posted in a reel, of course, because of course he did, that we understand that you're worried about photos of your friends and that you can't see photos anymore. We'll still have photos, but we're moving to video. We won't stop moving to video, and you're going to see more of video. He tried to make the point that if we didn't move to video, like the app would move to video anyway. I don't necessarily think that's true. There's always been an element of video, but they shut down IGTV not too long ago for the very reason that people didn't necessarily use the app in that way. I think when they stole from Snapchat, flattered Snapchat a lot by taking some of their content and making it into stories, which work very well on Instagram, they had a success. But I don't know if they're going to have the same success with Reels, but they're clearly really dedicated to it and they're going to pursue it even though they're really annoying a lot of people.
Facebook's been trying to make video happen for a long time. They basically gutted the journalism industry by lying to them about the kind of traffic that videos were getting and tricking all these media outlets into pivoting into video and then crumbling because the audience wasn't there. Is this another example of that they're trying to make something happen that's maybe not there?
I think that Meta, really likes video because they see it as a way to keep people engaged until the end of the video, for example.
Mm.
And so I think that serves their purpose very well because that's what they're doing with all of this. They're competing for eyeballs and they're competing for your time. And so that's why they like video. So absolutely, this is another chance to make video happen, as you say, even if its users very clearly, strongly say that they want photos to be a part of this as well. I think it was really interesting. There was a study that was done by a company called Later, which is one of these social media kind of management companies, and they found that between 2019, I think it was, and 2021, engagement on Instagram fell really starkly by more than 40%. And so, in addition to all of this, if you are posting photos, not only are you competing with videos, but you're also seeing fewer of your followers actually respond to those. So it's hurting their users, but it's also hurting influencers. And I know how much you guys care about influencers,
Oh yeah.
but
Deeply.
They've created, whether you like them or you don't, they've really created businesses for themselves on these platforms. And now they're working out that if you create a business on somebody else's platform and they can change the platform and leave you completely high and dry.
The media could have told them all about that.
And that, but I mean, that's long been the case because we've seen that happen with things like YouTube, people building up massive YouTube followings and then suddenly realizing, wait, hang on, I'm getting content restrictions, or I don't have the followers, or they changed the algorithm and my stuff's not doing quite as well, because it is that eggs in one basket and you don't own the basket scenario.
Absolutely. And I mean, like you said, we don't pay for these products. Like they're funded by advertising. They're about spruiking things to us ultimately, with the sideline that you might get to see some photos and some content from your friends. So yes, absolutely. Every time that, one of these companies makes a big change and puts in some new restrictions or some new guidelines or suggested posts all over the place, our job is to revolt and to moan about it, but ultimately, unless they see that there's a massive reduction in engagement, then they won't respond to that.
Well, that just about wraps up another episode of Vertical Hold. Thanks to David for joining us earlier and to Jen for joining us right now.
Thank you.
And Jen, it's time once again for you to face the patented low-salt Vertical Hold 3 questions of doom. Where can people find your work online? Where can they find you on social media? And our current big contentious question, what's the worst thing you ever spent your own money on?
Yeah, that's a big question. So you can find my work across News Corp titles like the Daily Telegraph, the Herald Sun, Courier Mail, those sorts of places. I'm online on Instagram at JenDN, but most likely at Twitter at Jen Dudley. The worst thing I've ever spent my money on, I bought a smart ring once that went kaput about a month later, so that was a bit disappointing. But I also went on a little venture in China one time to a fake market with one Mr. Alex Kidman.
I've
where
heard of him.
Yeah, no, good guy. Kept trying to sell me a watch there and went to find some lovely handbags, and to prove that they were real, they kept setting them on fire to prove that they were real leather. The bag that
Adam,
I
I
got,
swear she's not making this up.
it was a real thing. The bag that I got, I'm pretty sure it was not leather because it smelled like all the plastic went to dye in it. So I did not use it.
I did try and warn you, but also I was trying to keep the millions of people trying to sell your watch away from you at the same time. I was busy that day. And as always, you can catch us online at Vertical Hold AU on Twitter, at the Vertical Hold Facebook page, not yet at Vertical Hold Instagram, but on the web at verticalhold.com.au.
And as always, thanks everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to tell your friends about us, tell your enemies about us, and help us spread the good word in 2022. Vertical Hold is proudly brought to you by Aussie Broadband, changing the game with their award-winning network and Australian-based support.
Although the thought does occur to me, Adam, that perhaps now is the time we should pivot, because for once, just once, we were ahead of the trend. Because when we started doing Vertical Hold, we were doing reels, we were doing video.
Yeah, because I fell for the thing about everyone should be doing video. So we started as video, and it's a hell of a lot of work. And I mean, we've got good faces for radio, good faces for podcasting, as you would say these days.
This is true.
I don't think we need to repivot. I think pivoting to audio was a good move for us.
At some point, pivoting just becomes drilling, doesn't it?
Yes. Pivot too many times and you get dizzy.